morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is October 8th, 2024, and we're kicking things off actually with going right into an emergency press conference that Pierre Poilievre is issuing. It's no announcement, no prior, hey, we're doing this, just straight out the gate. He's walked into work, said, all right, reporters, get your cameras ready. Here we go. We don't know what this is even about. So we're just going to get into this and then see what's up. But before we do, I do want to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe if you're not already. It does really help grow the channel. And we are way ahead of schedule for Question Period. Like, Question Period doesn't start for quite some time, but nonetheless, there are people in the house. But more importantly, Pierre is giving the speech. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Here we go.
Encore à cause de la camouflage de Justin Trudeau et les libéraux qui refusent de donner les documents concernant un scandale de 400 millions de dollars à la GRC. Le premier ministre refuse de respecter le jugement du président de la Chambre et en conséquence, le travail du Parlement est paralysé. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a dans les documents qui est aussi mauvais que le premier ministre a peur de partager les preuves avec les...
He'll say it again in English.
Encore.
Don't worry.
Après 9 ans,
After 9 years.
le Bloc libéral n'en valent pas le coût, le crime et la corruption. Après 9 ans de Justin Trudeau, le coût de la...
Folks, don't worry. He's going to say it in English.
La nourriture a gonflé en prix, forçant 2 millions de personnes aux banques alimentaires. Il y a des maladies liées à la manque de nourriture qui font un retour à cause de cette inflation. Le coût de logement a doublé nationalement. À Montréal, ça a triplé.
He's saying subscribe to the channel.
C'est incroyable de voir combien ça coûte cher.
And make sure you like the stream.
De la bureaucratie que Justin Trudeau a financée, qui bloque la construction de logements, l'impression d'argent qui gonfle le coût de tout, un système d'immigration que Justin Trudeau a brisé après que c'était auparavant le meilleur système au monde. Et maintenant, on voit aussi la division que M. Trudeau a causée avec sa rhétorique, sa style politique, la division qu'il fait entre groupes, sa manque de sécurité à nos frontières. On voit ça surtout avec l'antisémitisme et la violence dirigée vers notre communauté juive. Il faut remarquer que ça c'est de nouveau au Canada. Évidemment, il y a toujours eu, malheureusement, l'antisémitisme. Mais pas si nouveau. On n'a pas eu des synagogues allumées en feu. La violence et les appels à la génocide devant les maisons, les hôpitaux, les entreprises juives auparavant. On peut blâmer, si on veut, le 7 octobre. Mais on a toujours eu des conflits en Moyen-Orient. En 1967, il y a eu une guerre. En 1973, la guerre de Yom Kippour. Il y a eu 2 intifadas, la guerre entre Hezbollah et Israël en 2008. Pas de violence dans nos rues, pas de synagogues attaquées. Ça, c'est de nouveau. En fait, les crimes de la haine avaient augmenté de plus de 100% avant le 7 octobre. C'est à cause de l'approche qui divise avec une idéologie extrême de ce gouvernement qu'on est dans cette place. On a vu hier encore une autre manifestation de ça. Des groupes sur la terre, ici au Canada, qui font des déclarations haineuses, qui revendiquent qu'Israël soit effacé de la carte. Des citations que j'ai fait à la Chambre, j'ai répété à la Chambre des communes pour chercher une condamnation de notre ministre des Affaires étrangères et refusé de les condamner. Et je revendique que Mme la ministre Joly s'excuse pour avoir refusé de dénoncer des propos génocidaires et haineux dirigés à notre communauté juive. C'est incroyable qu'au Canada, un ministre des Affaires étrangères n'a pas le courage de dénoncer des propos génocidaires et haineux dirigés à notre communauté juive, surtout quand elle veut avancer son agenda et ses ambitions à la chefferie future des libéraux.
He's going to be talking about
On a sur
all the craziness that happened yesterday. He'll say it again in English in a couple minutes here,
le
folks.
terrorisme. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle je suis ici aujourd'hui. Le groupe Samidoun, c'est un organisme qui est un front pour le Front populaire de la libération de Palestine, qui est un groupe déjà banni au Canada. Au Canada, on a une loi antiterroriste qui exige que si un groupe agit au nom ou pour le bénéfice d'un autre groupe terroriste, ce deuxième groupe doit être banni. C'est selon la section 83 de la Code criminel. J'ai la preuve ici que Samidoun fait exactement ça. Le fondateur de Samidoun, Khaled Barakat, a été décrit par le gouvernement israélien comme un membre haut placé du FPLP, un groupe banni au Canada. Le FPLP est placé sur la liste des entités terroristes en vertu du Code criminel du pays depuis 2003. En février 2021, le ministre israélien de la Défense nationale a désigné Samidoun comme étant un organisme terroriste et une filiale du FPLP. Et en 2023, l'Allemagne a également interdit Samidoun, déclarant qu'il servait de réseau international qui diffuse de la propagande anti-israélienne et anti-juive et qu'il soutenait et glorifiait diverses organisations terroristes étrangères, y compris le Hamas. Les dirigeants de Samidoun ont été expulsés d'Allemagne en 2019 et se sont vus refuser l'entrée dans l'Union européenne en 2022, avant d'être renvoyés au Canada, où ils étaient évidemment invités de venir. En 2019, PayPal, DonorBlocks et Plaid ont fermé les dons en ligne à Samidoun en raison de ses liens présumés avec le FPLP à la suite d'un incident survenu en 2016, au cours duquel le FPLP a fait une déclaration officielle de gratitude à Samidoun pour son soutien aux prisonniers du FPLP. Donc, finalement, la chef du Samidoun ici au Canada a dit que les attaques de 7 octobre étaient courageuses et héroïques. Hier, on a vu Samidoun brûler le drapeau canadien.
And then he's talking about all the protests yesterday.
Canada, mort aux États-Unis.
Death to Canada and death to the United States. This is specifically in Vancouver.
Ils ne sont pas criminels. C'est clair. Ce n'est pas criminel de dire des choses comme ça. Mais
it's not criminal.
Avec un autre organisme qui est banni, ça c'est criminel. Selon le
But it has to do with an organization that's banned in Canada.
Section 83. Donc, nous revendiquons que le gouvernement prenne au sérieux la sécurité de notre pays en interdisant cet organisme-là et en protégeant nos rues. C'est la moindre chose qu'on peut faire pour rétablir l'ordre. On veut que le Canada soit en paix encore, soit sécuritaire encore.
We want it to be
que les gens,
a loving country in peace,
y compris
Canada.
Surtout les Juifs, puissent se sentir en sécurité. Et c'est pour ça que nous revendiquons ça. Quand les conservateurs gagnent la prochaine élection, on va protéger tous les Canadiens. On va surtout se concentrer sur nos grandes priorités, couper taxes et impôts, bâtir des logements, réparer le budget, stopper les crimes, y compris le terrorisme, pour le Canada que nous connaissons et le Canada que nous aimons. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. As you know, the House of Commons is paralyzed today, again, I think for the 7th day, after Justin Trudeau refused the Speaker's order to hand over evidence to the police in a $400 million scandal. A scandal involving 186 conflicts of interest, wherein Liberal appointees gave money, Canadian tax dollars, to their own companies. There must be something really damaging in all these documents Trudeau is covering up for him to shut down the House's businesses for 7 days in order to prevent the police from getting their hands on him. It's just another reminder that after 9 years of Justin Trudeau, everything is broken. He's not worth the crime, the cost, and the corruption. Housing costs have doubled. The cost of food has driven 2 million people to the food bank. Our economy is the fastest shrinking in the G7. Right now, the average American makes 50% more than the average Canadian, the worst gap between our two countries in Canadian history. Food price inflation has been 36% higher in Canada than in the US, something that the food professor Sylvain Charlebois attributes directly to the carbon tax, which, and there the news gets even worse, Trudeau wants to quadruple to 61 cents a liter, which will grind our economy to a halt. Factories won't get their parts, grocery stores won't get their food, workers won't get their paychecks. It will be like a nuclear winter for our economy if this quadrupling carbon tax goes ahead. And that's why common sense conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime after the carbon tax election. But worse than anything else is what we see in our streets today. What has happened to our country? The division, the violence, the hate, the danger, the anti-Semitism that we've never seen before in this country. Now, it's easy to blame the firebombing of synagogues, the hateful genocidal protests, protest chants in front of Jewish businesses, homes, and hospitals as simply a reaction to a conflict in the Middle East. Doesn't make sense. First, hate crime was up over 100% before October 7th. And second, this is not the first time there's been a conflict in the Middle East. There was the war of 1967, and then there was the Yom Kippur War in 73. There were 2 intifadas. There was the war against Hezbollah in 2006. There was the operation against Hamas in 2014. We never saw that violence spill onto our streets. We didn't see people bring those hatreds into Canada. But after 9 years of Trudeau's radical ideology, his deliberate attempts to divide people into groups, his reckless destruction of our border security, letting in 2 ISIS terrorists, one apparently videotaped mutilating a human body
It's messed up.
on a crucifix and subsequently making that person a citizen. These kinds of reckless policies and the actions of this government, the refusal to condemn these remarks. Just yesterday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs did something unbelievable on the floor of the House of Commons. I read the genocidal comments that have been made by these radical mobs, and I said, would you just condemn it? From the river to the sea, she wouldn't condemn that. Israel will soon be gone. She wouldn't condemn that. There's only one solution, intifada, revolution. She wouldn't condemn that. She wouldn't even affirm Israel's right to retaliate against other countries attacking it. She should apologize. A foreign affairs minister in Canada should find it very easy to condemn those kinds of remarks, but she didn't because she's pandering politically, which is what Justin Trudeau has been doing for the last 9 years. Today, we see that on our streets, the organization Samadoun, which is a front for the PFLP, has been fomenting these violent and horrific protests and mob actions. This organization is a front for an already banned terrorist group, and it is an offense under Section 83.5 of the Criminal Code, as enacted by the Anti-Terrorism Act, to knowingly act on behalf of, at the direction of, or in association with a terrorist entity. Specifically, Samadoun's founder, Khalid Barakat, has been described by the Israeli government as a high-ranking member of the PFLP. The PFLP has been placed on the list of banned Canadian terrorist entities for 20 years. In 2021, the Israeli Ministry of National Defense designated Samadoun as an organization that is a subsidiary of the PFLP. Germany banned the Samadoun, saying that it served as an international network which disseminates anti-Israel and anti-Jewish propaganda and supported and glorified various foreign terrorist organizations, including Hamas. Samadoun's leadership was deported from Germany, refused entry into the EU in 2022, and both times they were returned and, of course, welcomed to Canada. In 2019, PayPal, DonorBox, and Plaid shut out online donations to Samadoun due to its alleged links to the PFLP.
Bet you his bank accounts didn't get frozen.
In June, where the PFLP issued an official statement of gratitude to Samadoun for its support of its prisoners. And Samadoun's Canadian leader, Charlotte Cates, has traveled to Iran and appeared on state TV, where she described Hamas's actions of October 7th as brave and heroic. Her organization has gone on to make numerous glorifications of October the 7th, specifically saying, this was what she said, her group said yesterday, long live October 7th. October 7th, the inception of the Al-Aqsa flood, the day that made clear to the world that Palestinian people and their armed resistance can and will liberate Palestine, and that the entire region will be free of Zionism and imperialism. The great flood toward liberation. On October 7th, 2023, Mohammed Deif, commander of the Al-Qassam brigades and the Palestinian resistance, said, "Today, the people reclaim their revolution, correct their path, and return to the march and return to the march of return." And finally, yesterday, the organization chanted in our streets, in Canadian streets, "Death to Canada, death to the United States, and death to Israel." So this is a terrorist organization. Common sense conservatives are calling for the government under Section 83.03 of the Criminal Code to ban Samadoun now. And let's bring home safety and security and peace to our streets. Let's unify our people. Let's end the crime by locking up the dangerous, repeat offenders. Let's secure our borders. Let's keep terrorists out of our country. And let's stand up for what's right once again. Stand with our allies against terrorism and for decency. Let's bring home the country that we knew and still love. Thank you.
À propos des demandes de documents que vous avez préparées en Chambre, même les gens de la GRC disent on n'en a pas besoin. Est-ce que ce serait pas le moment?
This is nuts, folks. This is nuts. So for those that are just tuning in or those that missed it, let me just summarize what's going on and catch everyone up to speed. I shared two videos about the protests, these pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, pro-Palestine protests. One was last night on MSB. One was early this morning on MSB. Now, they got crazy out of hand. You're talking smoke grenades. You're talking straight up vandalism on university campuses in Montreal. You're talking about, chants that are calling for the eradication and death of all Jewish people in Israel, but also here in Canada, all happening in front of the police. There is no other group, no other entity that could get away with this. You cannot go anywhere in Canada outside of maybe the comfort of your home with all your devices in a microwave turned off, say anything near these chants about any other group of people and get away with it. It's just not going to happen. You can't do that. And not complaining that we don't have the right to do that. That's just fucked up to be able to do that and get away with it nonetheless. After, late last night, what happened in Vancouver, there was another protest. So in my video this morning on MSB, there was three main locations that I covered. One was Quebec, one was Toronto, the other one was Ottawa. The vandalism happened in Quebec. Ottawa was insane with the amount of police, and Toronto was also insane with the amount of police, but also smoke grenades. It got crazy. Late last night, after all this happened, There was footage of another one that happened, another protest that took place in Vancouver, where they were burning the Canadian flag and I believe the American flag in front of that art gallery right downtown Vancouver. They were also calling for the death of Canada, the death of American, the death of Jews, like in those words. It's insane, right? I can't show the video on YouTube, and I don't particularly like even want to. I'm not Jewish. I don't particularly have like I don't particularly care about any other country in this world. I care about people, but I don't care about any other country. And what we're seeing right now is insane, that our government is so hypocritical. Our government is gaslighting us, saying, we stand with the Jewish people. We stand with them. And yet you have people in the streets that are literally saying, we want to get rid of you. Like, we want to kill you. This is not okay in Canada. And so that's what Pierre Poilievre is talking about right now. The escalation of these events is just so unfathomable. It's disgusting. It's violent. It's gross. This is not the Canada that, no matter how crazy you are, nobody voted for this. Not one single person voted for this. So that's what Pierre is talking about right now. Just so we're all caught up here.
Comment d'envoyer tout ça à Proc?
C'est pas clair de savoir si oui.
I'll just skip through the French stuff
$1 et ainsi
since I have the opportunity.
Un projet de loi
qui font appel à la vraie et à ce que je dans une position formelle.
Yesterday you said
This is live, by the way. This is happening right now, but I paused it for a couple minutes.
yesterday you said that you endorse Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow. And if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Earlier today, Chrystia Freeland said that she'd be willing to work with the Conservatives to pass any legislation referencing back during COVID where the two parties work together. Are there any priorities which you actually share with the Liberals where you could see the two parties working together to pass something?
What do you think? You seen anything good they're doing lately? By the way, I was very rude. I have an incredible team here. I want to point them out here. We have Don Stewart, who's been fighting against the crime, fighting to defend the Jewish community against anti-Semitism.
Dude, okay, I have to pause it again. This is the freaking difference between Pierre. This is the difference between Pierre and Trudeau and all of the other politicians. He is not taking credit for 100% of what's happening. He is the beacon of hope. He has a tremendously good team behind him. And when given any opportunity, and he does this with his wife as well, he turns back and points to whoever is behind him and shouts out his team for the amazing work that they are doing and the support. Like, this is incredible. This is true leadership. Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, does not do this. Justin Trudeau wants to be in the spotlight. He wants to have 100% of the credit and none of the accountability. He wants to be just center of attention all the time, and that's not the case with Pierre, man. This is just freaking leadership at its finest in Canada.
Great businessman who understands how we can fix the budget. We have Raquel Dancho, who has been fighting for safe streets as our lead on matters of public safety, and a great voice for Manitoba. We have our great heroine and deputy leader, Melissa Landsman, who, in addition to doing a terrific job in all of her roles, she helped this guy put his kippah on properly so it didn't fall off yesterday. So thank you for that. And she is leading the charge on literally every single file. And then we have, of course, Marty Morantz, a member of Parliament and Associate Finance Shadow Minister, who was the very first. I know all of you have been giving me credit for pointing out inflation would follow money printing. It was actually Marty Morantz. So please give Marty a round of applause, everybody.
True leadership, man.
You're asking me on, look, what is their policy? They've doubled the debt, they've doubled housing costs, they've given us the worst inflation in 40 years. They would have to they have to do exactly the opposite of everything they've done to fix all the problems that they've caused. What I'm saying is, let's axe the carbon tax to bring down gas, heat, and groceries rather than quadrupling the tax to 61 cents a litre. I would work with her on axing the carbon tax. I would allow her to take my private member's bill that will build the homes by removing bureaucracy to get building. I would allow the government to take my entire plan to cap government spending with a dollar for dollar law to bring down the deficit, inflation, and interest rates, and I would allow them to take my plan to stop the crime with jail, not bail, stronger borders, and not banning hunting rifles, and treatment rather than unsafe supply, so we can bring our loved ones home drug-free. So take that.
So why not just agree
No, but
to
I'm just
send
finishing the question. If you take those ideas, axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime, to Chrystia Freeland, let me know what she says.
Can't do any of that until this current debate is dispensed with. So why not just agree to send it to the committee like the Speaker has suggested? The RCMP says it already has some of these documents. Why continue to buy the government more time with keeping the House of Commons in stasis? You can't bring up your confidence motions.
It's been months now since the Auditor General revealed a $400 million spending scandal involving 186 incidences of conflict of interest where Liberal appointees gave tax dollars to their own companies. $400 million is a lot of money for the single moms who can't afford groceries, for the seniors who can't afford rent. We're not just going to let $400 million of corruption be swept under the rug so Justin Trudeau can get on with his day. So we say, let's end this now, let's get Parliament back to work by handing over the documents to the police so we can bring home accountability. Thank you.
Look at that, man. Like Pierre is not messing around, and it's really a shame that they're trying to it's not a shame that they're trying to hold Pierre accountable for the things that he's saying and the things that he's proposing, because obviously we want that from any politician, right? But where it becomes a shame is that they don't do nearly any of this with Justin Trudeau. Like Pierre, they're treating Pierre as if he is the prime minister, and they're treating Justin Trudeau as if he's like the Green Party leader. Like just softball questions. Hey, how's your day? How's the weather? Are you happy with the polls? Like that's it. It doesn't make any sense. I've never seen anything that's so corrupt in my entire life. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Sorry for not looking at you guys directly. I'm trying to get some other stuff ready here. That like I grew up trusting the system. I am to a certain extent a product of the system, working for the federal government, being in the military, right? And so I've trusted, and growing up in, I don't want to say a liberal household, but maybe classic liberalism, right? When I grew up 15, 20 years ago, when I was a little lad, like my family just, historically speaking, Canada's been more progressive. Liberalism 15 years ago, 20 years ago has absolutely no similarities to what it is right now. In fact, the only similarity is to where it is right now would be conservatives. Like the Conservative Party is now liberals from 15, 20 years ago, or that would be the closest comparison in my own personal opinion. And so I'm seeing right before my eyes the entire system shatter. Right? Like don't be fooled by the numbers of subscribers to the channel. Like I'm in shock and awe every single day. I'm in shock and awe. I've trusted the media in the past. I've always thought that they had good integrity, that they were doing good, honest journalism. I'm not a journalist. I just make YouTube videos. The CBC is funded by our taxpayers. Journalists are paid by taxpayers' money, right? If they work for those media outlets, and it's all just crumbling in front of me, and I still have a little bit of hope. A little bit. I'll be honest. I'm naive in that aspect. I still have a tiny little grain of hope left that maybe things can turn around, and then we see the media attack Pierre Poilievre, right? With mis and disinformation. They take clips and they smash them together and they create their own narrative. And then Pierre retaliates by saying, okay, we're banning all of our cabinet from ever talking to you guys at CTV. And then the next day, CTV fires 2 people that are responsible for doing that. So that glimmer of hope, sometimes it expands and sometimes it retracts. And I mean, with the Conservatives, this much closer to being a Conservative government, a Conservative majority government, that little glimmer of hope, it's expanding. And so, yeah, it retracts, day to day. It's got a heartbeat, right? Just like anything that's alive, right? It's fluid, not gender fluid, though. But it grows and it collapses. But I do think that we can really turn this country around and go back to the closest that we could get 15, 20 years ago, where we were united, where politics were boring, where we weren't waiting to see what the next scandal was every week, every couple of weeks, a few times a month. I'm really looking forward to that. I know that's contradicting because this channel and MSB and all the other affiliated channels, they all, rely on what's going on in the media, right? But I'd be okay with that, man. I would sleep better if things were a lot calmer with the Conservative majority government. I'd sleep better knowing that, we have good leadership, that there's people there that are, once we get there, right? Once we get to cheaper cost of living, not like, Pierre gets in. Well, when Trudeau gets out, I think we're all going to have a phenomenal sleep, but hope you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Now they're in the House right now. They're doing routine proceedings. They're presenting some petitions. So we're going to take a look at that. Why did I make that awkward? All right, we're going to take a look at the petitions. I got some super chats here that I'm going to read off, but I'll switch my screen so we can at least see and hear what's going on in the House.
Madam Speaker. I do have many more, but I will limit.
By the way, folks, if you're just funneling in now, we got almost 2,000 people watching.
Of charitable status
and it'd be nice if we got a little bit more likes. So if you haven't yet, I'd use this time now to smash the like button.
That the Liberals made to deny the charitable status of organizations that have opinions about abortion that are different from the Liberal parties.
I don't know if the super chats got cut off.
Charitable status of hospitals, houses of worship, schools,
but the furthest back I see is Joe Uber with the $10 super chat. After 9 years, Trudeau is still a stinky head. Damn censorship won't let me put other stuff. Yeah, I think we all agree with that, Joe. Thank you. Go study for your LSATs.
They say that charities and other not-for-profit organizations should not be discriminated against on the basis of their political views. And they call on the House of Commons to protect and preserve the application of charitable status on a politically and ideologically neutral basis. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Presenting petitions, the honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Nipawin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always an honour to present a petition on behalf of constituents. Madam Speaker, I rise for the 48th time on behalf of the people of Swan River, Manitoba, to present a petition on the rising rate of crime. The community of Swan River is overwhelmed by the extreme levels of crime because of this Liberal government's soft on crime laws like Bill C-5 and Bill C-70.
Element Gaming with the 5. What's your prediction on which party would... Which party? What's your prediction on which party would which party?
And back on the street the same day.
Did I not have enough coffee yet?
C-5...
Or does that not make sense?
Sentences from home. The people of Swan River see crime in their streets every day, and that's why they're calling for jail, not bail, for violent repeat offenders. Madam Speaker, the people of Swan River demand that this Liberal government repeal their soft on crime policies that directly threaten their livelihoods and their community. I support the good people of Swan River.
Questions on the order paper. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government's House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'd ask that all questions be allowed to stand at this time, please.
Agreed? Agreed, and so ordered. Orders of the day, ordre du jour.
Sorry, my phone's blowing up.
Resuming consideration of a privileged motion, failure to produce documents pertaining to Sustainable Development Technology Canada, and on the amendment.
What's your prediction on which party is going to win? I'm assuming.
Resuming debate, the honourable member
that's what
Pembroke had 4 minutes
Element
and
Gaming
30 seconds remaining.
Meant.
Debate.
Madam Speaker, for anyone just tuning in,
I think the Conservatives are going to win.
The Liberals chose a group of well-connected elites to give out money on behalf of the government.
Samuel with the 20. Oh, holy smokes. Hey, I'm a 21-year-old man. I work full-time 12-hour continental shifts. So to help me pass the time, I listen to your channels daily. Thank you for giving me some hope that this government will be stopped by conservatives soon. Dude, you're 21 years old and you're in the know. Samuel, you are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. That's your age. Congratulations. Congratulations, Samuel. I'm sure the chat will also congratulate you and thank you for the 20, followed by the 5. Also, Jagmeet was last question. Pierre is probably applying at Tim Hortons, because his party is broke. Jagmeet has not appeared many times in the House.
Madam Speaker, how do you think this will end?
Less times than Justin Trudeau, which is hard to believe.
The government's terrible agenda is not sailing through. Do they imagine
Thank you, Samuel.
Party base forming a massive convoy of luxury SUVs to come to Ottawa? Do you think a long trail of EVs leaving from Rosedale, the Glebe, and Westmount will come riding to their rescue? That's an adorable little fantasy they have over there, but it's time for a safe supply of reality. Most Canadians oppose this government. They oppose its plan to censor Canadians. They oppose its plan to increase taxes. And they oppose its plan to ban plastic food packaging. They oppose its plan to ban livestock farming. They oppose the preaching,
Fun fact, in BC,
Canadian
Premier candidate John Rustad, who's running for the Conservative Party of BC.
It can't happen soon. The scandal
if I'm not mistaken,
green slush fund is.
He said he's going to bring back plastic straws.
As I mentioned in my speech, yes.
I'm okay with that.
Chose a group of well-connected elites to hand out money on behalf of the government. And those chosen elite then gave the money to companies they either owned or had a financial interest in. Instead of sustainable development technology, we have the local journalism initiative now. One difference between the conflict of interest scandal at SDTC and the conflict of interest scandal with the local journalism initiative is that SDTC is accountable to Parliament through a minister. That's why employees were able to blow the whistle to the deputy minister. The Liberals did not put the local journalism initiative into an independent agency reporting to Parliament. No. Instead, they gave the money to lobbyists, organizations that campaigned for the cash in the first place. The lobbyists then appointed the owners and executives of media outlets to hand out the funds to the chosen media outlets. Those owners and executives then gave the cash to their own companies. That would be the same media owners and executives who control the media lobbyist associations. Whether it's SDTC or the local journalism initiative or $1 billion for We Charity, it's always the same thing. The Liberals are handing out other people's money to well-connected Laurentian elite in a circle of self-dealing. Madam Speaker, or Mr. Speaker now, Canadians are sick and tired of this corrupt, incompetent government. They need to hand over the documents to the RCMP. Then it's time to call the election Canadians so badly need. Now, I want to quote from my colleague in the other place, Senator Plett, who recently gave a rundown of all this government scandals. Quote, the first scandal in the top 3 is the SNC-Lavalin affair. This started when the criminals snuck a change into the criminal code into the budget bill to allow the government to make deals with corporations found guilty of corruption. Again, preempting, we know there will be corrupt people, so let's find a way out for them. This came after months of intense lobbying by SNC-Lavalin officials.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Jober with the 10. Like and subscribe, homies.
Mr. Speaker, at the very least, I always find my colleagues' speeches interesting, not necessarily factual, but they're interesting, Mr. Speaker. And the question that I have for her is related to her opening statement in terms of trying to report the facts. For example, she indicated that you have the SDTC, which is actually an arm's length from government, I must add, an organization that went awry. She gave the impression that the government did nothing, which is just not true, Mr. Speaker. There were 2 internal investigations. There was, the board has been replaced, and you actually have a freeze of new funding. That's action. Now, Mr. Speaker, the issue before us then is why should we walk over the Charter of Rights in order to solve an appetite of the Conservative Party for their desire for an election when we have the RCMP and the Auditor General expressing concern as to the Conservative tactic that they're using today?
The honourable member from Renfrew Nipissing.
That guy's always in the House.
I don't know what
he never leaves.
Rights he thinks are being impeded, but let's go to what he started to ask about their action, or tell us about their actions already being done. Well, they froze things, and in this instance, what's happened in SDTC, which existed since the early 2000s and had run fairly unproblematically until this government took power, providing money to companies who actually provided jobs and grew into multi-million-dollar businesses. Well, by freezing that money, we have several other companies that were ready to launch into other countries as well, based on that income. Instead, they end up having to pay extra taxes and leaving Canada altogether. So that's one of the implications of the actions that was taken. In terms of the documents, we need those. We only know about the $400 million that has been misspent out of $1 billion allocated every year. I know they don't have those pages released, Mr. Speaker, but there's so much more corruption to uncover.
Scott McConnell, welcome to the membership program. Thank you.
The honourable member.
Abbotsford. Speaker, I appreciated my colleague's speech, and she was interrupted at the end just as she was starting to share with Canadians the large number of scandals that this Liberal government has been engaged in over the last 9 years. Perhaps she wishes to continue, regale us with more and more of these scandals that have brought this government essentially to its knees.
From Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
So I mentioned the SNC-Lavalin, and I thank my colleague for being able to continue this. But all these scandals, this litany of scandals, from the several allegations of corruption of officials in Canada around the globe against engineering construction firm SNC-Lavalin, the Prime Minister himself applying pressure to the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, to sign an agreement to let SNC-Lavalin off the hook. These are a few of many reasons why Canadians no longer trust this government. And the only solution...
People are calling death to Canada in the streets, and our government's not doing nothing.
Canada can throw them out and make the decision known for everyone. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love that about Conservatives. Two women sitting on their bench. And they just, let's do it. The enthusiasm.
I was also going to ask you to continue with the long.
That's how you know it's real and genuine. It's not an act. They don't have to fake it. They don't have to remember to do it.
The question I was going
to
ask.
I love it.
Now I'd like for her to talk about how, the work of the House is being blocked, but there are a number of reasons why we ought to doubt the current Liberal approach. Does the member not believe that it's now time to vote on the motion so that we can force the government to hand over the documents? Then we can move on to something else on the agenda.
Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
The fact that one of my colleagues in the bloc would have to ask why we even need to continue demanding these documents is gives pause to let me explain further the SNC-Lavalin situation. The former Attorney General was not of the opinion that SNC-Lavalin met the criteria in the provisions added to the criminal code just months before, but the Prime Minister sent his most trusted advisor and his clerk of the Privy Council to make it clear to the Minister that she had better obey or else. Minister Wilson-Raybould had more credibility than anyone in the PMO, and she didn't budge. For that reason, she was shuffled into Veterans Affairs, opening the position of Attorney General to David Lametti, who didn't have the same moral compass as Ms. Wilson-Raybould. He was just as happy to be in Cabinet. So he signed whatever paper the Prime Minister put in front of him. When this scandal became public, the Prime Minister claimed what is in the Globe and Mail is false. Of course it wasn't false. The Prime Minister lied, and his office tried to ruin the reputation of Ms. Wilson-Raybould in the media.
Fair point of order. I can imagine what it's going to be. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, using the word lie is unparliamentary, and she should have been possibly edited out of her speech.
I'll then just ask the Honourable Member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke to please withdraw that.
Yes, I withdraw that word. Thank you for pointing that out, my biggest fan in the Liberal government. To finish up with my colleague from the bloc, it's important that we drive the message home, making sure every Canadian who has tuned into Parliament or not hears from by word of mouth how corrupt this government is, and that we don't let another piece of business go until this has been addressed properly. And the only way to address it overall, so everyone has a say, is to have a carbon tax election now.
Questions and comments?
Let's go silence.
Mr. Speaker, and the Honourable Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke may be surprised. I think that the chronology of events as she describes them is accurate, but with one exception. And I, as someone who is in the Green Party, not part, although the word Green gets thrown around as if we have something to do with this, obviously not. No.
You don't have anything to do with anything in government.
To the chronology, except for this, that we don't know that the people who were put on that board had any connection to any political party at all. In fact, the chair of the board, who egregiously violated conflict of interest standards, was an advisor to Jim Flaherty, much admired former Minister of Finance under Stephen Harper, to Stephen Harper himself. In other words, like many people in business in Canada, this person seems to have made sure that they had favors with many different parties and weren't associated with anyone in particular.
The Honourable Member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Okay, and so that member sticking up for the Liberals, propping them up, probably explains why during one of my constituency clinics in Renfrew, I had a couple come all the way from her riding to make an appointment to see me, because they had grown up in Pembroke, and they from time to time had, or in Renfrew, and from time to time had seen the writings that we had handed out to their family members, and they wanted to tell me firsthand that they want a Conservative riding represented where they live. In her riding there, they want a Conservative to become elected, and they want her out, and this is the reason why.
Mm-hmm. The Honourable Member from Windsor West has the time for about a 40-second question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Real quick then, with regards to the appointment process, would the member agree that we would have to change those? Because in the past, in the Harper administration, we had Bruce Carson, who is also incarcerated. We have a whole series of others of appointments that have problems. And then we have this current situation that's taken place. Would more transparency for appointments be something they would support that would then actually also be tabled in the House of Commons here when we make these decisions?
Honourable Member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
The best step to take at this point, Mr. Speaker, is to have the documents produced so we can see how deep the corruption goes. Have the member who just spoke and his party stop propping up this government, have a carbon tax election so we can get to work on doing what needs to be done and deal with the appointments.
Dibs on dabs on dibs on dabs to the 279.
Debate.
We stopped committing fraud,
The chair
so stop
would now
looking.
like to return to the minutes from March 20th, 2024. The member for Etobicoke Centre had used language that was deemed unparliamentary by the chair. The member was asked to withdraw his comments and apologize. He refused to do so.
That's a good
and
point.
such has not been
Samuel with the 5.
since then.
Earlier today,
what do the Liberals have to hide?
On another member for similar comments. The chair is now ready to move on and allow the member for Etobicoke Centre to again participate in debate as of tomorrow, October 9th, 2024. The chair now considers the matter closed. La présidence estime que cette affaire.
The chair now considers this matter closed.
Members for their attention. Reprise du débat.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Terrebonne.
Okay. Sam with the 5. What do the Libs have to hide?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Give up the documents. Stop making excuses. You look like a kid that doesn't want to give a report card to their parents.
The privilege.
I mean, that's exactly right.
Is very important to us because we are in the middle of studying Sustainable Technology Development Canada in the Public Accounts Committee, of which I am the vice chair. First, Madam Speaker, I'd like to be clear about one thing. In recent days, there have been mentions of filibustering in Parliament and allegations that this privilege motion is all about gumming up the works of government. Well, this is not just a question of parliamentary privilege. Even if there was a majority of government, it would have done wrong, because it is trying to prevent people from verifying the work of government. I want to give some examples about how the government ought to be able to govern effectively in a corruption-free environment. Unfortunately, this does not seem to be the case with the current situation. This is not just a question of parliamentary privilege, however. Madam Speaker, democracy is a matter of trust.
She's filibustering, talking about filibustering.
The government showed at several points that people really ought not to fully trust them, because when it refuses to table documents in Parliament, it looks like the government has something to hide. And if it has something to hide, it needs to do something. It's all very well and good to hide behind the independence of the Auditor General and the RCMP. We agree that these entities are independent, but we need to make sure as parliamentarians that all the documents we ask for are provided to the Office of the Parliamentary Law Clerk and Legal Counsel and the Clerk of the House. When the Liberals act this way, it looks like they are hiding damning evidence. Some would say, oh, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development moved quickly. Well, look.
Yes, SDTC was.
No, I don't believe that
since 2001.
Pierre has been banned from asking questions.
The Auditor General's report showed there were so many problems that it was better to completely throw it out than do anything else. I mean, imagine that. Incredible.
That's because of some language that he used yesterday.
Madam Speaker.
But the Speaker...
the Minister...
pushed it down.
Also required changes to the Board of Directors.
And in terms of what was just said by the House Speaker like 2 minutes ago, that was a member from Etobicoke. That's not Pierre.
Despite his salary of $1,500 a day, he was not able to answer any question in a clear and precise way, despite the fact that they've been in post for 4 months now. There were a number of points of order, and the reaction of and it took a reaction from the chair of the committee for the board member to answer any questions or admit that they didn't have an answer. Meanwhile, the chair of SDTC has gotten away. The executives haven't been affected by this. The previous CEO quit at the end of the year, at the end of 2023. So that leadership team, has been okay. But I'll give you some examples of where there are things linked to this former CEO that are very problematic and that the House should be seized with. There are other members of the executive who are mentioned in the Auditor General's report, still have not appeared at committee because they're on sick leave. Okay, fine. That's all right. We can respect that. But it prevents us from being able to move forward, Madam Speaker. So what we're asking for, because we can't hear from key witnesses, is for the government to cooperate. But the government, so far, is refusing to provide documents to Parliament so that Parliament can look at the issue in detail. So we hear the government say, let's look forward, let's look at everything that's been done. But once again, when everyone on this board of directors, which is supposed to, ensure transparency, is unable to answer parliamentarians' questions, we have to answer. We have clear questions about this transition that's underway and about the government's will to really make sure that this money is saved and invested in projects that will be.
Did that just recently happen? Weren't we just watching?
That was not answered.
When could that have possibly happened?
The new member of the board of directors yesterday. It's in answer to the. It's with reference to SDTC's answer to one of the Auditor General's recommendations. They didn't accept all the recommendations. There was one that was only partially accepted, and it's the recommendation that SDTC should re-evaluate projects approved over the audit period to make sure that they meet the criteria of the program. Well, Madam Speaker, that seems like it's a very clear recommendation, and it was only partially accepted. Why? Well, because SDTC has hired consultants to go through all of the projects, yes, but yesterday the member of the board of directors was unable to assure me that if the Auditor General had identified a project as being ineligible, if the consultants then came in and said, no, this project was eligible, well, probably the consultants would win that debate. So SDTC is not even able to accept all of the Auditor General's recommendations and to accept that certain projects that were judged ineligible by the Auditor General of Canada be considered ineligible. But it goes even further than that. Contracts were written to not be broken except in cases of fraud by the business. What does that mean? It means that in the example that I've just given, if a contract is considered to be ineligible, the business can say, just by applying, that's not fraud. It's SDTC that accepted ineligible projects. And yet, in certain cases with conflict of interest, where people were friends with people in the businesses, the money went to that business. But the contract can't be broken, Madam Speaker, under these terms.
Holy shit.
I almost called you Madam Auditor General, but you are Madam Speaker. So the contract can't be broken. So that means that there are projects which are, which were judged to be ineligible by the Auditor General.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that this happened while Pierre was giving his speech? Was it before Garnett? Hold on here, folks. Where did that happen? Before Elizabeth? Is this it?
Enforcing parliamentary rules.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
Mayors from my riding who... Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt the honourable member for Béthien-Masquinongé. He will have 3 minutes 40 to finish his speech.
Okay, so here's what just happened. Oh my goodness. All right. While Pierre Poilievre was giving a speech in Parliament, he was standing in the foyer. He talked about how he had Melissa Lantsman behind him and Raquel Dancho behind him and other Conservative MPs out of the camera. While Pierre Poilievre was doing that, Greg Fergus, the ethics violating scumbag that he is, snuck back into the House floor and delivered this motion right here. This is insane. He's banned Pierre Poilievre from asking questions in the House, apparently.
But I must interrupt him to make a statement.
Indicated that during question period, the Leader of the Opposition had used language directed at the Minister of Foreign Affairs that was deemed to be unparliamentary. In fact, it was very similar in nature and language used earlier this year by a member who accused the Leader of the Opposition of pandering to an odious regime. At the time, that member was asked to withdraw that comment. I therefore asked yesterday that the Leader of Opposition do the same, namely to withdraw his comment at the earliest opportunity. To date, this has not happened. We will soon find ourselves at the time of day where the Leader of the Opposition normally undertakes one of his most important roles, namely leading off question period. Members will recall that when the Leader of the Opposition was himself the subject of unparliamentary language, to which I just referred, members of his caucus took great offense and made that perfectly clear to the chair occupant, who then very rightly insisted on a withdrawal. As such, I am sure members can appreciate that I must do the same in the present circumstances. Notre régime parlementaire repose.
Our parliamentary system.
Well, there you go.
Depends on.
So he'll be able to return to question period or ask questions tomorrow.
The application of which has been entrusted to the Speaker and other chair occupants.
But right now he can't, unless he apologizes.
Who is in charge of enforcing parliamentary rules, has a corrosive effect on our discussions. I would call.
All right, so my phone's blowing up here. He said he asked Pierre to withdraw his comment, otherwise he won't be able to ask questions today. This isn't permanent. He'll still be able to ask questions tomorrow, or he'll be able to ask them today if he withdraws. And with question period literally right around the corner, we're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. So stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. We're going to know in just a moment here. But holy smokes, like he actually did it. He did an official ruling to temporarily ban Pierre Poilievre from asking questions on the House floor. That's pretty corrupt.
There's no goodwill here. Another example. Osler is advising a fund that's called the Active Impact Fund. And what we're seeing, Madam Speaker, is that this fund, which is advised by Osler, has a portfolio that resembles in many ways SDTC's portfolio. So Osler is advising SDTC on project eligibility and how projects are approved, but it also advises a fund that's investing in the businesses that SDTC is investing in. And so all the examples that I'm naming, by the way, these aren't examples that can be given to the Auditor General for study, because this goes beyond the scope of what the Auditor General can look at. However, this is what Parliament needs to look at. This is Parliament's job. So examples like this, Madam Speaker, I've got many more of them. Tomorrow, we'll hear from the former industry minister. We have a lot of questions to ask, and I'll be saving those for tomorrow. But please know that
Jordan English with the 2 saying, let's get some likes in here for HOC. Thank you.
We still don't know.
We're pretty close to 1,000 likes, actually.
Is going to come to light because
Mike Carter with the 5. Pierre, get no questions today. The speaker said so. Raquel did a live stream about it on Facebook. She's mad. That's not cool, man. Richard with the 2. Thank you for what you do. For us, you're the man. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that.
Right now, who's refusing to answer?
And the cryptic Stench with the 279 says, "Petition time, brother. Can't stand this."
Requests from the chair of the committee to answer parliamentarians' questions. We have to ask. Well, listen, who's?
It is petition time. Don't worry, folks.
Is it the opposition?
The wheels are in motion.
Privilege request, or is it not the government which refuses to answer parliamentarians' questions, whether that be at committee by through the people that they have appointed, or be it in this House by refusing to answer questions and by accusing the opposition of not having enough vision of wanting to obstruct the business of Parliament? Maybe the Conservatives do want to obstruct Parliament a little bit, but that's not the case here. For the
I do want to say this.
I don't think it's the case for the.
I will say this before we continue, because someone brought up the petition. Okay. I've been honest about this. I don't like go make it a habit to advertise it every single day, but I've been honest about this. I've never voted. I know it's crazy. Somehow I have these channels to the size what they are. I get it. I'm part of the problem. I've never voted. I've heard it all, right? I've never voted, and my first vote ever is actually going to be for the BC Conservative Party, because that is the deadline for that is in like 10 or 11 days from now. Absolutely insane. But above and beyond that, I'm working on a petition. I'm literally working with a group of people to get a petition pushed through the House of Commons, which would stop Greg Fergus from muting the microphone the way he has been. I'm working on it. Yesterday is the first day ever that I broke the barrier between doing this, we're talking to a camera with lights and a microphone. I broke the barrier yesterday. I went to my local MP ridings office and I sat down and I talked about this petition and I talked about things that are going on. I've never done that in my entire life. That's a huge first step for me. And it was pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about that. I gotta say, it felt cool to walk into a local MP's office and try to just try to get some dialogue going and get a little bit of help or a little bit of guidance for this petition, right? So pretty excited about that. Yeah, and I'm excited to officially launch a petition. We are very close to doing that, by the way, very, very close. But yeah, just thought I'd throw that in. When can we sign, or where can we sign? Soon. You'll know right away. You'll know when it happens. You won't be able to open up your phone and not be aware of it. I'll tell you that much.
To function, so the government had a fund that
W's for sunshine, says Lauren.
In my riding, in some of my colleagues'
riding, shit.
There were.
I mean, I'll take them.
With great
I'll take the W's if you guys want to throw them out.
We need if we want to make a transition. And yet, the Liberal Party has showed what they do best. They take good ideas and then they ruin them. That's what they did with SDTC. They ruined a great fund. And, there's another example of a question, and I've got so many of these. Another example of a question that the board member was unable to answer yesterday at committee. What will SDTC's money be used for, the money that hasn't been dispersed yet? Because there are still several $100,000 that haven't been provided to companies and which are in SDTC's accounts. And that money is going to be transitioned to the National Research Council.
Above and beyond the W's,
Crown Corporation.
Let's
the Privy Council.
Let's try and get some likes on the channel or on the stream, man.
Was appointed 4 months ago.
Let's see if we can get some likes, get over 3,000, maybe 4,000 people in here before QP starts.
Goals.
15 minutes.
Development goals, as it should be. No, nobody's been able to answer that question. Not the Privy Council, not the current SDTC board. Nobody has been able to answer that question. This funding, which is there for green technology, will it be used properly? No, we don't know. We have no idea. So we're still in the dark. What a great transition this is. We're not getting answers to our questions. The documents aren't being provided, and they're not able to answer such simple and good questions, such as, what's this money going to be used for? Because we know if the Conservatives take power, it's possible that this government, that this money won't be used for green technology. It's possible that it'll be used for, buying pipelines or, financing Western Canadian oil. We know that the Conservatives and Liberals agree on one thing, which is that, it's a good idea to get rid of this fund, but not for the same reason. The Liberals are trying to hide things, but the Conservatives, are quite happy to not have a green fund. It's as simple as that. So with all of these elements and the new information that we're discovering every single day, there's still one more thing I want to say, which is that, we can't question the independence of the Auditor General. And I think that the initial motion had something about that. And it's not up to us to question the independence of the Auditor General. And that having been said, and this is why I'm rising in the House today, it is essential that when we ask for documents from the government, that those documents be provided quickly and without redaction. Because, listen, it's one of our responsibilities of Parliament, and it's the duty of the government to provide these documents. We need
Cryptic, the cryptic sent with the $6.99 saying, apologies for bugging you about the petition. I can't stand the BS anymore. Dude, and this goes for everybody. I'm gonna mute her. And then I got to mute her in my headphones. Look, this goes for everybody and anybody. If I say I'm going to do something on any of my channels, hold me accountable. Seriously, hold me accountable. I'm not here to trick people or anything, right? So maybe I forget. Maybe I need a little bit more pressure. Whatever it is, hold me accountable. I don't take it personally at all. Look, I've said I'm going to do the petition, and I'm doing the petition, and I can see a week has gone by, a little over a week has gone by, and there hasn't been anything. And I get it. This shit takes time. Yesterday, I refuse to obey the system. So when you go to your local MP's office, now I feel weird about saying this because I don't want to condone this behavior. But when you in the real world, in the big world, usually you book appointments to go do things. I didn't. I just called the office about 4 times and then I rang the doorbell and then somebody finally answered. But I'm like that in my personal life. When a friend doesn't pick up, I'll dial, I'll redial, I'll just keep going, and it's like that Stewie Griffin meme where it's like mom, mama, 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 mommy, mom, Lois. It's like that. I'm like that in real life.
I do want to remind that we are still in the debate, and if they have anything to contribute to this debate, that they wait until the appropriate time. There's 10 minutes of questions and comments, and it will continue after question period as well. But I just want to remind members to be respectful. If they don't have the floor, they shouldn't be speaking. The
Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would invite my colleague to listen to my speech again because clearly he missed the point where I said that the independence of the Auditor General and the independence of the RCMP is not to be questioned. However, the government has the duty to provide the documents that we're requesting. It's the duty of Parliament to hold this government to account, and unredacted documents, that's what this Parliament has asked for. Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was a good speech. The member gave a number of examples of where the federal government has wasted taxpayers' money. And now it's not a surprise. We don't have money to give to small green businesses. So is it a surprise for the Honourable Member that this is where we're at? The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. I'm not sure if I completely understood the question, but if the question is that there's a surprise, am I surprised that there's a lack of funding for green businesses? Well, yeah, this government, has been saying since 2015, since 2016, that they're a green government that's going to provide all kinds of money for new technology. But look what they did with the SDTC fund. Look what they did with this fund. The fund had been in place since 2001, and because of their fault, this fund has had
the freaking translator is matching the pitch.
The Honourable Member will have 7 minutes and 40 seconds remaining the next time that debate continues before the House. Now we move to statements by members.
Members, the Honourable Member for Cape Breton, Council.
Madam Speaker, the passage of Bill C-49 sends a powerful message to all Atlantic Canadians that the future of Canada is green. Madam Speaker, I was shocked when the Conservative leader directed his party to oppose Bill C-49 and the amendments to the Atlantic Accords. In doing so, Conservatives were positioned to rob Atlantic Canada's economy of investments of millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. They stood in the way of provincial governments, municipal governments, local businesses, First Nations communities, unions, and numerous environmental groups, all of whom lobbied and rallied for the legislation as the key to unlocking our green future. Conservative politics and their climate change denial, Madam Speaker, almost ended the green energy sector before it even begun. Madam Speaker, Nova Scotia have won. Bill C-49 is now law, and we are one step closer to being a world energy leader in green energy production.
I want to remind members we are in session. There are statements going on. If individuals are not interested in those statements, I would ask them to step out and have their conversations there. J'espère que c'est bien compris.
I hope that this has been clearly understood by all members. The Honourable Member for Oxford.
So much to be grateful for in Oxford, especially our incredible farmers who are working hard on the fall harvest.
That's right.
Oxford farmers are some of the toughest and best farmers we have in Canada. They're the backbone of our community, rising early and working late hours to ensure food makes its way from their fields to our forks. As the proud dairy capital of Canada, Oxford leads the way with the thriving agritourism, food production, and cheese industry that fuels our tables and our economy. As farmers face higher farming costs, including input costs and more red tape from this Liberal government, Conservatives will be partners with our farmers so we can make more, grow more, produce more, and harvest more right here in Canada. So this Thanksgiving, let's thank these men and women who risk and sacrifice so much to
get yourself situated, get yourself a coffee.
For the farmer.
Get your lunch ready if you're out at work.
The honourable member for Sackville, Chesapeake.
We're about to start in 10 minutes or less.
Nova Scotia. That is why we passed Bill C-49, which enables the creation of offshore wind projects in Atlantic Canada for the very first time. This bill alone will attract billions in investment and create thousands of jobs for Atlantic Canadians. That is why I was so deeply disturbed to see the Conservative Party turn their backs on Nova Scotians once again by opposing legislation to attempt to stop these jobs, stop economic growth, stop renewable energy projects from coming home right to Nova Scotia. Fortunately, the Conservative failed, and we delivered.
This bill.
I feel my blood pressure rising from that.
We have passed for clean energy. Thanks to these investments, we're going to fight climate change. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Madam Speaker, it is with great pride that I am underscoring the 35th anniversary of the Beauport Community Development Corporation. The CDC Beauport allows all of its member organizations to cooperate to improve the quality of life of its citizens, in particular the most vulnerable, by showing their dedication, commitment, and knowledge. Whether it be fighting poverty, supporting families, or taking mental health initiatives, CDC Beauport is a pillar of our community. Jacques Bellemare, the Director General of CDC Beauport, deserves all our admiration. He is determined, courageous, an unprecedented diplomat with a good sense of humor. He is a real leader for this organization. Thank you to all the volunteers and all the employees throughout the years. Thank you. You make the difference in fighting poverty, supporting families, and ensuring mental health. Thank you for being among us, for us, day after day. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Speaker, when I sat in the Newfoundland and Labrador legislature with Premier Danny Williams, I remember when he had to go to Ottawa to fight day in and day out against the Conservative Harper government, who tried to rip up the Atlantic Accord, an historic agreement which has delivered jobs and prosperity in our province for generations. And now, over the last year here in the House of Commons, I had to fight day in and day out with my Liberal colleagues against the Conservatives again, who tried to rip up the Atlantic Accord and kill Bill C-49. For the last year, the Conservatives have stood against the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, the people of Nova Scotia, while we fought for them, so we could deliver on the promise of the Atlantic Accord and the enormous opportunities of Bill C-49. Madam Speaker, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have led the offshore oil sector. We will lead the offshore green energy sector, and we will do it without the support of the Conservative government.
Again, there were individuals that were not being very respectful during that statement, and I would ask them that to please afford the respect. Yes, some of them are recidivists in that respect. We do have students here in the House who are listening to what is going on here and watching, and I would just ask to be a good example to them. The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, there is mounting evidence that the Environment Minister was grossly negligent in his handling of the catastrophic Jasper wildfire, a fire that cost $1 billion, destroyed a third of Jasper, and has resulted in 40% of town residents being left homeless. The minister was repeatedly warned that Jasper was a tinderbox, and yet in the face of that, his officials canceled prescribed burns out of concern for political optics. This is scandalous. When the fire began, the minister obstructed the ability of the Alberta government to participate in the response. Proper infrastructure wasn't in place, and more than 50 firefighters were turned away as Jasper burned. Failure after failure after failure under this minister's watch. He has a lot to answer for.
The honourable member for Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Madam Speaker, Nova Scotians are smart, passionate, hard-working people. Nova Scotians are seizing our strong winds, turning them into big revenue that will drive our economy and produce good jobs for generations to come. Unlike the Conservatives, we believe that Nova Scotians should reap the rewards.
Thank you, Cryptic Stench, for the $2.79. They're taking our jobs.
Wind and clean hydrogen industry.
And Dina or Deanna for the $5 super sticker. Appreciate that.
And Atlantic Canadians, unlocking a generational
You're number one. Thank
opportunity
you.
for our region. But just like the Harper Conservatives of the past, who tried to push Atlantic Canada down by trying to take our offshore revenues, Conservatives are doing it again, trying to do everything they can to block this huge opportunity for Atlantic Canadians. Terrible. But let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, we won't let them. We're standing up for Nova Scotians and we're standing up for Atlantic Canadians because of our hardworking people deserve to prosper.
Yeah. Good job. Good job.
The honourable member from St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, the offshore wind industry is expected to attract $1 trillion in investment by 2040. And with the passing of Bill C-49, Newfoundland and Labrador is poised to lead the way. Just like it did for our oil and gas sector, the Atlantic Accord will now ensure we are the beneficiaries of our wind resources. And that means thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in investment. While Conservatives voted against Bill C-49 every step of the way, we believe in the future of wind. We understand the energy market is diversifying. We support strong and prosperous economy for Newfoundland and Labrador. I will always stand up for Newfoundland and Labrador's future. And with Bill C-49, it is looking even brighter.
Yes. Good job.
The honourable member from Kenora.
Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and what should be a time of joy, family, and celebration is unfortunately become a stark reminder of the economic pain that this government has caused, Mr. Speaker. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians are struggling to afford essentials, and that includes food. In fact, 2 million Canadians are visiting a food bank in a single month. The food banks across Northwest Ontario are running out of supplies because demand is so high, and Canadians are paying $700 more for groceries this year than they did in 2023. And we know that the NDP Liberal coalition will in fact quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre if they are given the opportunity. So, Mr. Speaker, as Canadian families gather for the Thanksgiving weekend, they should know that only common sense Conservatives have a plan to axe the carbon tax, to bring down the cost of food and ensure that all Canadians across this country can afford to feed, heat, and house themselves once again.
Yeah, way to go, Eric.
The honourable member from Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, I have tremendous news for the people of Cape Breton. Bill C-49, our offshore wind bill, is now law. Expanding on the historical Atlantic Accords, we have delivered groundbreaking legislation that will enable the construction of offshore renewable energy in Atlantic Canada. While support for this legislation was unanimous in the Nova Scotia provincial legislation, the federal Conservative leader shamefully directed his party to oppose countless jobs, billions of dollars worth in investments for sustainable growth. Bill C-49 sought input from Indigenous stakeholders, local businesses, the fisheries, and environmental advocacy groups to improve and pass this important legislation.
People were wondering why Pierre got banned and suspended from the House today. What did he say yesterday? He accused Mélanie Joly of pandering to Hamas.
Build economies of the future and continue.
That's what got him banned.
For Atlantic jobs.
The honourable member from Calgary Centre.
More proof that this NDP Liberal government is not worth the cost.
Honestly, at this point, Conservatives should just do another walkout.
You have ruled that the NDP Liberal government violated the House order to turn over evidence for a criminal investigation into their latest $400 million scandal, effectively obstructing justice. The refusal to respect your ruling has paralyzed this House, sidelining our efforts to address skyrocketing housing costs food inflation, and rampant crime. This is the latest in a litany of financial scandals with this government. The Auditor General's investigation revealed the Liberal appointees at SDTC funneled nearly $400 million taxpayer dollars to their own companies, with over 186 conflicts of interest, while Canadians struggle to afford basic necessities. Will the NDP Liberal government end this cover-up, hand over the evidence to the police, and let Parliament get back to work for Canadians?
That's right. The honourable member from Caribou, Prince George.
Brianna McDonald, a vibrant, intelligent 13-year-old girl, was abandoned by a system that should have provided mental health care, that should have provided addiction care, that should have provided her with the care she so desperately needed to help her overcome her demons. The system failed Brianna. On August 23rd, Brianna was found unresponsive. She died by overdose, alone in a tent in a homeless encampment in Abbotsford, BC. Instead of providing her with the care she needed, she was given needles and taught how to use them. Brianna had just turned 13. Did the Prime Minister call? No. Did the Minister of Health and Mental Health call? No. Brianna's parents are in Ottawa today. What does the Prime Minister have to say now to the parents who, because of his failed radical drug policies, will never see their daughter again?
The honourable member from Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, the hydrogen industry in Canada is expected to be worth $12 trillion by 2050 and help create more than 350,000 Canadian jobs, all the while helping us fight climate change. Together with provinces, Canada's allies, industry, and organizations like the Canadian Hydrogen Association, Canada will succeed from this enormous economic opportunity.
This is going to be crazy.
Making strides with the national
we could see a couple different things. We could see
and Bill C-40
every single Conservative member could get up and repeat what Pierre Poilievre said yesterday, which would effectively get them all banned. Personally, I prefer that one. We could see the Conservative Party get up and walk out. We could see Pierre try to talk. I doubt that'll happen. We could see Pierre apologize. I doubt that'll happen.
They're transforming the trucking industry with lower
Or there's no changes. Nothing happens. And it resumes as it normally would.
Mr. Speaker, let's all embrace.
But the Conservatives are this far down in, badgering the government and accusing them of their failures for protecting Canadians and allowing all of the pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah rhetoric in the streets. We just saw it last night. We saw it last night in Vancouver. Death to Canadians, death to Jews, death to Americans. That's what freaking people said in Vancouver.
2012 and 2019.
I'm going to do a poll in the chat. I'm going to do a poll in the live chat.
Today's report shows that some of those concerns are getting worse. For instance, grassland birds have declined by 2/3 since 1970, so something is clearly going wrong in our grasslands. But these reports also show that when we know what's going wrong and we have the political will to fix it, we can see dramatically positive results. Hawks, eagles, falcons have increased by 1/3 since 1970 because we banned DDT. Waterfowl have also increased because we started conserving their habitats. We know all this about bird populations because of the thousands of talented volunteers who go out every day to count birds. These citizen scientists have given us an incredibly powerful measure of the health of our forests, grasslands, and waters. Thank you.
The Honourable Member Longueuil Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, on October 18th, we'll be underscoring the Night of the Homeless. Once again, we will get together to lift the veil on this reality that affects too many people. This year's theme is the 100 Faces of Homelessness, which highlights the different backgrounds, paths, and human beings that are hidden behind this.
It's too late now to say sorry. Only Canadian politics.
Ran away from an unstable home, an isolated elderly person who has been forgotten by society, a vulnerable worker who can't make ends meet, or someone suffering from mental health or addiction. Behind each glance, there is a human being with dreams, hopes, and a will to find meaning in life. The Night of the Homeless is more than an event. It's a reminder of our collective responsibility, because behind each face there is a real person, a story that deserves to be heard, respected, and supported. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence is clear. Sammy Doon, also known as the Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, is knowingly acting on behalf of, at the direction of, and in association with at least one listed terrorist entity under the Criminal Code, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Sammy Doon is based in Canada and incorporated as a not-for-profit under the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. Other jurisdictions have taken action. Germany and Israel have listed Sammy Doon as a terrorist entity, and the European Union has banned them from entry. The Liberal government needs to take terrorism seriously, needs to take anti-Semitism seriously.
I hope they stand with Pierre.
And list Sammy Doon as an entity under the Criminal Code of Canada for terrorism.
Dude, I hope the Conservatives stand with Pierre and do something drastic, because this is unacceptable.
From Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to welcome the members of the Northwest Territories Council of Leaders to Ottawa this week.
Pirate King Buggy with 5. I'm almost 30 and can't afford to move out of my parents' place because rent and mortgages are unaffordable with my current wage. Make homes affordable again.
While these leaders
Amen. Pierre's trying.
Different levels of government in different regions,
Mr. Devilish with the 2.
for the same
Liberal and NDPs have destroyed our beautiful country.
for northern communities. This council is meeting with federal ministers
Fretful Crane, welcome to the membership program.
An advocate.
And Clayton with the 5 towards groceries for the homeless.
Reconciliation and modern treaties.
Thanks, Clayton.
Protecting our environment while sustainably
We're cut off.
developing our
I will not be acknowledging any more super chats until after question period.
Valley Highway. Again,
Let's focus on the meat and potatoes here. What's going on? This is going to be a perfect storm.
continued progress in advancing northern priorities. Thank you. Message from Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions.
Oral questions. Questions Honorable Melissa Leitzman.
$100 million Liberal scandal has paralyzed Parliament for a week. Mr. Speaker, you yourself ruled that the NDP Liberals have violated a House order to turn over evidence to the police for a criminal investigation into their corruption. They are defying your ruling, and they have grinded this place to a halt. The auditor said that there's $400 million tax dollars and 186 conflicts of interest in questions. Canadians can get accountability today if they hand over the documents to the police. So what's in those documents, and how bad is it?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by noting the events in Vancouver yesterday at a protest. We unequivocally condemn those events and those actions. It is absolutely unacceptable to burn the Canadian flag and to chant "Death to Canada." It is also unacceptable to deny and celebrate the events of October 7th and to champion the acts of a terrorist group. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, good job on the Liberals for actually acknowledging that.
The honourable member.
Yeah, they've had a whole year to talk about this.
They found the courage to condemn something in this House, but whatever is in those documents, back to the matter at hand that I asked about, must be really bad if they're willing to hide the corruption. Months ago, the Auditor General found that the Liberal appointees gave nearly $400 million tax dollars to their own companies, 186 conflict of interest. I'll ask again for the 7th day in a row, will the NDP Liberals end the cover-up, give proof to the police so we can get accountability for the corruption and get Parliament back to work?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important I read your ruling into the record because the Conservatives didn't hear it the first time. The Chair, that's you, Mr. Speaker, is of the view that it would be valuable to afford an opportunity for the concerns expressed by the RCMP as well as by the Auditor General to be addressed fully, and I would hope for a mutually satisfactory solution to be arrived at. I believe the best way for this to be achieved would be to follow the usual course for a prima facie question of privilege, that is a referral to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. We're ready to send this matter to committee. When will the Conservatives do that?
No. Every time it goes to committee, they block it.
Just going to ask all members, please, not to take the floor unless they've been recognized by the chair. The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the House Leader missed the part where you told them that they're holding this House in contempt. If there is nothing to hide in those documents, then they should be able to hand them over. $400 million to Liberal friends, 186 conflicts of interest from a government that knows really well what a conflict of interest is, all while a record number of Canadians can't afford to eat. How bad are these documents that they would hold this place up for 7 days, defying your order, and to hide the $400 million that they gave to their friends?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're ready for this matter to move on to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, just as you ruled. The only
Look at Chihuahua, not even paying attention.
Conservatives, they're trying to spin out of their own obstruction because they don't want this to go to committee, because what they will hear is expert after expert talking about the egregious abuse of power that the Conservatives are trying to do in this place to override the rights of Canadians. We're ready to move forward, Mr. Speaker. It's only the Conservatives that are afraid of a vote.
No, every time it goes to committee, they block it.
The honourable member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
That's misinformation.
Mr. Speaker, in La Presse today, Sergeant Vincent Moore of the Montreal Police Eclipse Squad deplores the fact that gang members are using firearms without fear of consequences. He says, "It's gone completely crazy. I've never seen anything like it in my 18-year career. Nowadays, it's not uncommon for someone to be arrested, and they say, well, it doesn't matter because they'll let me off with just a piece of paper and I'll do it again. They're no longer afraid of being arrested by the police because they know there'll be no consequences. Why have this PM and the Bloc allowed criminals to rule our communities?" The Honourable Minister of Justice. I appreciate the question because it gives me the opportunity to underscore what we've done. With respect to firearms, we've invested roughly $400 million against guns and gangs. Was the Conservatives, like the member across the way, voted against? With respect to administration of justice, yes, there is an issue with bail conditions. When we look at bail, we have to verify if the Crown is contesting it, if there's enough room in detention centres. It's a good question to speak to Legault about. The Honourable Member for Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice has blamed the Quebec Premier on 2 times for something they changed, that the federal government changed, and that's why this legislation is causing so much issues in Quebec. And the Sergeant Guiguerre of Montreal Police said that people are saying, before this ruling, people on the street would tell us they didn't want to go to jail for long, but now they're getting arrested for guns, and soon after they're back on the street. Why is the government not changing its laws? Because they're crippling enforcement. The Honourable Minister of Justice. First thing, the C-75 has increased sentences for car theft, which he voted against. Second thing, people who decide with respect to bail are judges and justices of the peace who are appointed by who? Mr. Legault. So if you have any problem with respect to that, the administration of justice, you have to speak with Mr. Legault in terms of space in courts and detention centres and perhaps some issues with rulings they've made as well. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker.
Reminder, if you haven't yet already, to
for farmers,
drop a like on the stream.
All parties voted in favour of Bill C-282 on June 21st, 2023. It was sent to the Senate over a year ago. There is one clause. They've been studying one clause for over a year, all because 2 unelected senators, Paul Bohm and Peter Harder, are dithering because they disagree. 2 non-elected individuals want to overturn the vote of elected representatives from all these parties. They were appointed by the Liberals, who in the Liberal government is going to explain democracy to their 2 friends in the Senate. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you that we agree entirely with respect to this question with the Bloc. Supply management is very important to our country, particularly important for how we occupy our lands. We want to be there to support our farmers. And yes, we do expect the Senate to work diligently on this issue and to be sent back as quickly as possible. Thank you. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. C-282. Well, all parties voted in favour of it. This is the second time we've tabled this bill. We've been studying it from all angles since 2020. Remember, we're talking about one clause, and even the Holy Scriptures haven't been scrutinized like this. And now there are two senators who think that we're all fools and want to overturn the vote of 338 elected representatives of the people. Enough is enough. Will the Liberals ask their two friends to stop blocking democracy?
Stop blocking democracy. Call an election. Come on, Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As you know, we made a big decision as a government to ensure that the Senate to be independent. And since we've done this 9 years ago, we've appointed senators that are independent. I think it's a concept that the Bloc should understand, independence. Order, please. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby. Finding affordable housing is harder than ever for people across the country. But we've just learned that big property owners use AI software. They've had a secret agreement to increase rents. The NDP tabled a motion to get to the bottom of this story, and the Liberals and the Conservatives blocked this motion. It's shameful. Canadians cannot find affordable housing. So why are the Liberals and the Conservatives profiting big property owners instead of protecting people? The Honourable Minister of Housing. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows full well, it's essential to invest and not just identify challenges. On this side of the House, it's important to advance investment for building affordable housing. It's essential to support communities as well.
Investments to actually get homes built, not simply point fingers and try to identify problems with no solutions coming forward.
The Honourable Member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
The Housing Minister needs to tell his members to stop blocking the presence of these CEOs in committee. For Canadians who rent, finding a home they can afford is nearly impossible, and these rich corporate landlords are using artificial intelligence software to potentially collude and jack up rents. Shame. The NDP proposed a study to expose rent gouging, but the Liberals and Conservatives teamed up and blocked it. Shame. Canadians deserve a government that protects them. So why are the Liberals, along with the Conservatives, continuing to protect profits of corporate landlords over renters struggling to find a home?
Good question. Once again, I'm going to encourage all members not to take the floor unless they're recognized. Includes the Honourable Member from New Westminster Burnaby. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague with the NDP has suggested for the Minister to tell my colleagues what to do at committee. On this side of the House, I can tell you it's my colleagues who tell me to increase investments to build more affordable housing. The NDP have made a point to point out where there may be some challenges where I actually agree that we need to address. The difference is on our side of the House, we actually are advancing solutions to address them. We are putting billions of dollars on the table to build more affordable housing, to build more cooperative housing, and to help nonprofits buy up that low-cost housing on the market to keep it affordable forever. If the NDP want to turn their mind to solutions, I'll listen. Until then, I'm going to continue acting.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
The Liberal government is violating a parliamentary order to hand over evidence to the RCMP. At issue is the Auditor General's findings that officials at SDTC broke conflict of interest laws 186 times and funneled $400 million of taxpayers' money into their own companies. All this at a time when Canadians can barely afford to eat or heat and house themselves. Now, by refusing to accept your ruling, they have effectively paralyzed Parliament, pushing aside all other work to address the housing crisis, the inflation crisis, and the crime crisis this government unleashed. Why not end the cover-up, hold the lawbreakers to account, and let Parliament get back to work?
If they were truly working for Canadians, they would hand over those documents.
Mr. Speaker, that member sat in your chair at one point, and I think he would have an interesting perspective if the opposition was not following his ruling as he is doing. I quote, and I repeat, what you said, Mr. Speaker, is I believe the best way for this to be achieved would be to follow the usual course of a prima facie question of privilege, that is, a referral to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. The government is willing to do that. We're willing to vote in favour of it. The only party that is holding Parliament up are the Conservatives because they don't want the truth out there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Then ask the honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's.
Quite literally doesn't make any sense.
Unless recognised. The honourable member. Order. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
If she scrolled up just a little bit more on your ruling on the website, Mr. Speaker, she would see where you ruled that withholding evidence after a parliamentary production order is a contempt of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. About Liberal insiders funneling cash into their own pockets. Why don't they want to get to the bottom of this? And while Conservatives are putting forward real solutions to lower taxes, to make housing more affordable, and to end the crime wave that this Prime Minister unleashed, this government is going to great lengths to keep this information hidden. They're effectively obstructing justice. Why not let Parliament get back to work and hand over the evidence to the RCMP?
Yep. Put some W's in the live chat, folks.
Leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not even sure the House Leader of the Opposition believes his own spin. He could scroll down a little bit and see what you asked of him, which was to prepare a motion that you said you would accept to send it to committee to be studied. Mr. Speaker, we welcome that. We will get this studied. Let's get this out of the House. But there's only one group of MPs that don't want that to happen, because what will come out is they are trying to abuse the extraordinary powers of this place, override the rights of Canadians, and get rid of police independence. Mr. Speaker, that's not acceptable.
The honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Look, this is a case of $400 million and 186 conflicts of interest that are benefiting Liberal insiders lining their pockets while Canadians are lined up at food banks. The response from the government to a parliamentary order to produce the documents is, first of all, to break the order so that they can bury it at committee, while Conservatives want to make sure that this corruption, this scandal, sees the full daylight that it's deserved, and a referral to Canada's Royal Canadian Mounted Police so they can decide to take a criminal investigation. Oh, wait, we've learned that they are already investigating the latest corruption with these Liberals. Will they turn over the documents today?
The honourable leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, your ruling was very clear. Send this to committee. There's only one group of MPs that are afraid of that going to committee, and we are prepared to vote on that, Mr. Speaker. Let's send it to committee. Let's have that debate. The only group of MPs that are obstructing their own obstruction, because they don't actually want to help Canadians. All they want to do is serve themselves and their own partisan interests. Mr. Speaker, let's get this out of the House. Let's get it to committee so that we can get back to the important work of serving Canadians.
They block in committee.
The honourable member
every time.
Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Says she wants to get it out of the House. She wants to get it out of the sunlight, the daylight. They want to bury it at committee. They don't want Canadians to know about the latest example of Liberal corruption.
What did I just say?
We see that conflicts of interest are very common over there. That Prime Minister broke the law twice. The Public Safety Minister broke the law. The Trade Minister broke the law. The Liberal appointed chair of this Green Slush Fund broke the law. Every time these Liberals get a chance, they enrich their friends. They want to hide it from Canadians. Conservatives want to get the truth. We want to get accountability, and we want Parliament to be able to get back to work for Canadians. Will they turn over the documents today?
Order.
No, you order.
The honourable member from the Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We already
Chihuahua.
block, but now we learn we have the blocker in chief, the Conservative, Mr. Speaker. How ridiculous for Canadians watching at home. They are blocking their own motion, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine that? The Conservative are blocking their own motion.
motion. Mr. Speaker, we know the Conservatives know how to count to 6, so let me explain to them. There's not been 1 report. There's not been 2 reports. There's not been 3 reports. There's been 4 independent reports, Mr. Speaker, to go to the bottom of this, Mr. Speaker. We got to the bottom of this. Let's get back to work and then expect better from all of us.
Boo.
Order, please. The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, according to one senior civil servant, there's a lot of negligence and laziness, and there's also sheer incompetence, and the situation is simply unsustainable. And the SDTC activities are almost at the level of the sponsorship scandal when it comes to the allocation of funds. Canadians' tax dollars are being squandered without consideration, and nothing's being done on the other side of the House to remedy the situation. Will this Liberal government deal with this scandal as quickly as possible?
Hey, translators on point.
Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are waking up as if this was news.
Let's go.
We took action quickly and decisively, Mr. Speaker. Not only was there 1 report, there were 4 presented, 2 by a national law firm and others. We investigated, we took action, and it is time, Mr. Speaker, for this Parliament to resume its work in the interest of all Canadians. Thank you. The Honourable Minister for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, in the Green Slush Fund scandal, the government is openly refusing to provide the documents required for the RCMP to investigate corruption at SDTC, where the Liberals allowed their friends to benefit from taxpayers' dollars, as uncovered by the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals put an end to the cover-ups and provide the police with the evidence so that the Parliament can work in the interest of all Canadians? The Honourable Minister of
Conservatives are a
Public
riot.
Procurement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's be very clear. My colleague has already clearly explained this, but since we're talking about the RCMP, allow me to provide a comment from the Commissioner. I'd like to underscore that the RCMP is operationally independent, and it respects the independence of the police force. This principle guarantees that the government cannot direct or influence the enforcement of law, and that includes members of this House. The Honourable Member for Shefford. All age groups, 79% of the population are in favour of increasing old age security. 79%. Regardless of your age. You don't have to be between 65 and 74. Everyone agrees. Why is that? Because people respect their elders, because the world shows solidarity, and if we can improve the living conditions of those who need it, well, we're all for it. Even in the chamber, we agree, except the Liberals. When will they listen to reason, show they have a heart, and give C319 royal recommendation? The Honourable Minister of Employment and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc has never taken one opportunity to support seniors. In terms of the GIS, they voted against it. For dental care, that 14,000 people from Shefford had benefited from. As of today, the Bloc voted against it. For all the housing measures for seniors, the Bloc was against it. When will they say yes to our seniors, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Member for Shefford. Since he was appointed Minister of Seniors, the only achievement of the member for Gatineau has been to turn his back on the 65 to 74 age group. All he's done is play petty politics when it's time to step up to the plate. He's promoting Liberal interests when it's time to think of our collective interest. An old-fashioned politician with no sense of state. It's not too late. He can still act for the common good. Will the Minister finally get his act together, drop the partisanship, and give C319 the royal recommendation. The Honourable Minister of Employment and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, my track record for seniors and all the Liberals from Quebec members, all our achievements, well, we could compare the two, what they've done at the Bloc.
It's definitely got a different vibe without Pierre.
They voted against the increase in GIS. They voted against for housing investment for seniors. Every time we made a proposal to help Quebec seniors, the VOC rose together against them. The 35 Quebec Liberals from members from Quebec always voted for these measures. The Honourable Member for Shefford. What's more, the Minister offers conspiracy theories to explain why he's no intention of doing anything for seniors. The big bad separatists are preparing a secret plan so you don't get your pensions. Ooh. Old fear-mongering from the 80s. He's talking about winning conditions and independence. So are we. We think that improving seniors' living conditions is a win-win situation and it helps ensure their independence. Instead of scaring people, can the Minister get to work for people and give C319 its royal recommendation? The Honourable Minister of Employment and Seniors. I'd like to tell you, Mr. Speaker, what seniors are afraid of. They're afraid of having their dental care removed, that the thousands of seniors, millions of Canadians have benefited from. And they're wondering, these seniors in Gatineau especially, what the Bloc is doing with the Conservatives in terms of austerity, cutting daycare spots, cutting dental care, cutting health care. The Bloc and the Conservatives, that's the real risk for our seniors and Canadians.
The Honourable Member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
There is so much Liberal corruption that they're covering up their cover-up of the $400 million corruption of the Liberal Green Slush Fund. The Speaker ruled that the NDP Liberals violated a House order to turn the Green Slush Fund documents over to the RCMP for investigation. How much worse is the corruption that the NDP Liberals are refusing to respect the order of the Speaker, pushing aside all the work of doubling the housing costs that the Liberals have done, inflation and crime? We can get back to the business of this House if the NDP Liberals just end the cover-up and turn the documents over to the RCMP. Why won't they?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, if we're going to be mansplained to, they could at least try and get it right. But the fact of the matter is that you ruled very clearly that this matter should go to the House committee. If the members opposite would like to read your full ruling, they can go do that, or I can table it in the House for them to read. But I would encourage them to not just cherry pick parts of your ruling, but to actually follow it as opposed to what they're doing. We're happy for this matter to move on, for it to go to committee, for it to be studied. It's only the Conservatives that are holding this place up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, it's not.
From South Shore, St. Margaret's.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Every time I meet with a Liberal, I have to check for my wallet. And they just took $400 million of taxpayer money and funneled it to Liberals in the Green Slush Fund. Why are they ignoring an order of this?
That's friggin' funny.
Preventing us from getting to the business of the House, since they won't turn over the documents to the RCMP. If the Prime Minister won't end the cover-up, we'll at least call a carbon tax election so Canadians can get the Green Slush Fund money back.
The Honourable
W's in the chat, man. That was the funniest zinger of the day.
Every time I meet a Conservative, I have to search for some semblance of reason. When we talk about what's going on here, let's think about why your ruling said send it back.
He says that?
Mr. Speaker, your ruling said that because
he says that as
because you know what happens normally
that person sits behind him.
Documents in your law enforcement, you go
every single question period.
You don't go into a partisan arena such as
I'm just saying.
Because a court of law, a judge weighs things called charter interests, like your expectation of privacy, like your right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. Those are important considerations. We will stand by them every time.
How unsafe does this person back there feel having to wear that every single day?
The Honourable Member from Brantford Brent.
Mr. Speaker, the latest $400 million scandal from this Liberal government has paralyzed Parliament. The Auditor General found 186 conflicts of interest, with close to $400 million handed out to corrupt Liberal insiders, all at a time when Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. It begs the question, how damning is that evidence that they have grounded Parliament to a halt simply to hide the truth from Canadians?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I enjoy the interventions from the member opposite, but I also appreciate his experience as a former Crown prosecutor. He used to work closely with the police. And what he would recollect from his past career is that those police operate independently from him as a former Crown, and certainly independently from politicians. Why do they do that, Mr. Speaker? So that we can have confidence in our institutions in this country. You know who doesn't have confidence? People that live under authoritarian regimes. Instead of emulating authoritarianism, how about he join this side and learn how to fight against it?
Dude, these guys are so cringe.
Colleagues, please.
You've now upset Uncle Brock.
I ask the Honourable Member from Wellington Halton Hills please not to raise his voice when he is not recognised by the Chair. The Honourable Member. The Honourable Member from Brantford, Brant.
Speaker, you ruled that the NDP Liberals violated a House order by withholding evidence regarding their $400 million scandal, effectively obstructing justice, to which the Minister of Justice should be aware of. Their refusal to respect your ruling has paralyzed Parliament, pushing aside all our work to address the doubling of housing costs, food inflation, and the rise in crime and chaos. The time to end the cover-up is now. When will they hand over the documents so that we can get accountability for corruption and get Parliament back to work?
Yeah. And hide your wallets.
Of the government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, your ruling was clear to send this matter to committee for further study. The Conservatives don't like that because they'll hear from experts like the former law clerk who says, in my humble opinion, it is an abuse of the powers for this House to use its power to demand and get documents from the government in order to transfer them to a third party that wouldn't otherwise receive them, or to compel the government to give documents to a third party. Mr. Speaker, expert after expert will tell them this is wrong. We are here to stand up for the rights of Canadians every single day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The right to burn Canadian flags and call death to other Canadians.
The Liberals are actively refusing reconciliation and evading their obligations required in the honor of the Crown. This government knew for 7 years that the big dock in Fort Chipewyan is contaminated with cancer-causing substances, and for 7 years they covered it up. Rightfully, families are now worried about their children's health and whether they will lose them to cancer. When will this government uphold the honor of the Crown and work with First Nations to ensure their health and safety?
Hear, hear. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for raising this important point. Safety is my top priority as Minister of Transport. I hear and understand the concerns from the First Nation communities, and it is crucial that remote Northern and Indigenous communities have access to safe and reliable connectivity that they need. I will be continuing to work with the Minister of Indigenous Services on this very important matter. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Churchill, Kiwatanacaski.
Mr. Speaker, we're now over 1,300 days since the Liberals promised to end long-term boil water advisories. But instead of doing that, the Liberals are fighting First Nations in court as we speak, doing their best.
I'm sorry to interrupt the Honourable Member. Colleagues.
Silence.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Churchill, Kiwatanacaski, to start her question from the top.
Mr. Speaker, we're now over 1,300 days since the Liberals promised to end boiled water advisories, but instead of doing that, the Liberals are fighting First Nations in court as we speak. Doing their best Stephen Harper impression, they are carrying on years of colonialism and denying First Nations the right to clean drinking water. Shamattawa, the lead plaintiff, is taking on Canada, one of the richest countries in the world, whose Prime Minister travels the world pretending to be a leader in human rights, all the while denying Shamattawa clean water. When will this government stop fighting Shamattawa, Tatasqueyak, and 58 First Nations and deliver clean drinking water?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, we've lifted 145 long-term boil water advisories together with First Nations, and we're going to continue till we get the job done. And as a matter of fact,
You're going to continue with the water boil advisories instead of fixing the water?
the situation that we found ourselves in 2015 with Bill C-61 in committee nearing study. I hope that we'll see a safe passage of that legislation through this House so that no First Nations person ever lives without clean water again.
There's so many that are living without clean water.
Member from Bonavista Burn Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, in the 1980s, the Government of Canada and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador came together to sign the historic Atlantic Accord. This agreement created an offshore energy sector in our province, delivering economic opportunity and prosperity for generations of families and communities. Now, this government and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador came together again to strengthen this accord to kickstart a new offshore renewable energy industry. Bill C-49 has now become law, ensuring that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians can lead the world in offshore wind and clean energy.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because with a strengthened Atlantic Accord, Atlantic Canada is set to become a global leader in wind hydrogen. There are trillions of dollars on the table, Mr. Speaker, and we should all be excited about the good jobs that that's going to create in our region. And think about the kids who now get to see their folks work at home. But the Conservatives spent months blocking C-49. And really, how could the member for Central Coast Bay, Notre Dame, fight against the best interests of his community? Because Conservatives try to stand in the way of progress. But we get it done. And Atlantic Canada will produce the clean energy that the world wants, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton.
She's extremely annoying.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up, Mr. Speaker. And now we're dealing with yet another Liberal corruption scandal. The Liberal minister from Edmonton misled Parliamentary Committee when he claimed to have had no contact with his business partner around the time of an alleged $500,000 fraud involving someone named Randy. However, when phone records proved otherwise, he changed his story. Why won't he just come clean about this corruption?
Conservatives jump up and they clap and they support each other every single opportunity.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've stated many times, if a witness goes to committee, we expect that they provide the information that the committee asks of them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, he muted the mic.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton, Mill Woods.
Speaker, it's clear from that answer that the corruption cover-up continues. The Liberal minister from Edmonton first said that he did not text with his business partner, but now that there's clear evidence that he did. It is no coincidence that after months of looking into this matter, there is no other Randy who can be identified other than the Liberal minister from Edmonton. In fact, the minister's own business partner even admitted that the only other Randy ever connected to this company is that minister. So when will the minister finally stand up in this place and admit that he broke the law?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've stated, if a witness goes to committee and the committee asks them for information, we believe that that witness should provide the information as requested of them, and we expect as much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Regina, Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. In order to get around the Conflict of Interest Act, the Liberal minister from Edmonton seems to have hired someone known as the Other Randy to manage
the Other Randy
medical supply company. Well, just like the Other Randy, there should be an other Prime Minister to run this government. When will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election so Canadians can finally have an other Prime Minister?
Hear, hear. Great question.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. If there's another Randy, there should be another Prime Minister.
The Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Speaker, all of us come to this place because we want to serve Canadians. The Liberals on this side of the House want to be able to deliver important measures for them, but we know that we need to be able to earn their trust every single day. What we see from Conservative members of Parliament is that they think they've already won the next election, Mr. Speaker, but that's not how elections work. We all have to have the humility in this place to work hard for Canadians. It's up to Conservatives now to determine whether they want to do that work or whether they don't. Let's get to work. We're ready to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Lille, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, you yourself decided that this Liberal government had violated an order of the House to hand over evidence to the police to investigate the latest Liberal scandal involving $400 million. Parliament is completely paralysed by Liberal corruption. Canadians are counting on us to do something about the high cost of living, the crime, and the budget chaos that has been impoverishing them for 9 years. When will this Liberal government stop obstructing justice so that we can finally get back to the work that will help Canadians eat, house themselves, and live in dignity, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, for Canadians tuning in to question period today, they might be wondering why the Conservatives are obsessed with an organization that is no longer operational. The CEO has resigned. The board has resigned. So here's the question today, Mr. Speaker. The issue is that the Conservatives don't like your order. Why not? Maybe in committee we will find out some new things. On this side of the House, we believe in justice, and on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will always defend democracy. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. We've been hearing a lot about asylum seekers these days. What we hear is not always well thought out, though. This makes us forget the main problem. The number of asylum seekers in Quebec exceeds our intake capacity. We are not able to offer services to these people, and they are living in poverty. And there are provinces that could help them, but they're refusing to help. The only humane way to manage the record influx of asylum seekers is for everyone to do their fair share. And yet, provinces totally refuse to help. The federal government has to take action. This matter is under federal jurisdiction. What is the minister doing right now to get things moving? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees. Mr. Speaker, the member is right. This is an area of shared jurisdiction with the federal government. We need other provinces to help and to welcome asylum seekers. All provinces do need to do their fair share. We are working with provinces who are not in agreement because we need to be humane and treat them well. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. No action's being taken. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, we don't have any more classrooms for the children of asylum seekers in our schools. We don't have teachers for the classrooms that we don't have. We don't have enough food at our food banks. We have a housing crisis. As we speak, though, there are new people at Montreal's Trudeau Airport applying for asylum. They will join the growing ranks of victims of all these crises I just listed. The provinces are doing nothing, the Liberals are doing nothing, and the Conservatives are hiding. Mr. Speaker, what will it take
Call voting on confidence.
To do something? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Mr. Speaker, there is a shortage of teachers in Quebec and in the rest of Canada. That's not new. Asylum seekers are not the reason there is a teacher shortage in Quebec. I wonder whether the member read the letter that I sent to my Quebec counterpart, Jean-François Roberge. There has been progress, though.
Yellowhead. After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up. This radical environment minister ignored experts who warned Jasper faced a devastating wildfire if nothing was done. His officials discussed cancelling prescribed burns for political optics, and now we've learned 50 firefighters and 20 fire trucks were turned away as a third of Jasper burned. Thousands are homeless and nearly $1 billion in damage. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Environment stand up and apologize to the people of Jasper for his failure?
Denied controlled burns, and then it just went up in flames.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows that the discussion between those Parks Canada employees was to determine whether or not they would do prescribed burns or mechanical removals. He knows that, they know that. To try and insinuate that because they didn't want to do prescribed burns, we did nothing is simply false. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we invested 40 times more in forest fighting capacities around Jasper than they did when they were in power, Mr. Speaker. And the company he talks about has no relationship with Parks Canada. They're a company that worked for the Alberta government. Happy to give him the number of the Premier in Alberta if he needs it.
The honourable member from Red Deer-Lacombe.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. The latest revelation, 50 firefighters and 20 fire trucks were turned away from Jasper National Park just before the town burned. These brave firefighters were ready, willing, and able to fight these fires, but were ordered to stand down. So now the only question that remains is, would the minister categorize the results of his leadership in this as incompetence or negligence?
Yeah, take your pick.
The Honourable Minister for Official Languages. Colleagues, the Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. And my honourable colleague has heard from the Minister for Parks Canada. That company in question was in the employ of the Government of Alberta, and the matter was resolved. Mr. Speaker, I have been in regular contact with Mayor Ireland and his council, as have other members in this government, other ministers, other MPs. Mr. Speaker, we are working with Mayor Ireland, his council, and Jasperites every week to make sure that Jasper comes back better than ever before, because that's what Albertans and Canadians expect of us.
The honourable member from Red Deer-Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, Parks Canada put out a tweet that said they would be installing a sprinkler system to protect the Jasper town site. Even the minister's own officials seem to know that water is better at stopping fires than his carbon tax, yet there is no indication that these sprinklers were ever installed, despite a tender notice being posted in 2021, 3 years before the devastating fire. Can the minister confirm how many permanent and mobile sprinklers were operational and deployed in Jasper to save homes and businesses? Just the number, please, even if it rhymes with zero.
Holy shit.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, instead of spreading disinformation and misinformation in this House, Mr. Speaker, I actually went to Jasper, and the sprinkler system has been installed by Parks Canada in collaboration with the work that we've been doing with the City of Jasper. I'd be happy to show him where it is in the city, Mr. Speaker.
Town site, or township of Jasper.
Colleagues.
Not city.
Colleagues, it is so important for members to only take the floor, so not only that we can hear the questions and answers, and I'm also referring to the
national parks fall under federal jurisdiction. They require ministry approval for controlled burns. It's not provincial.
The microphone.
So he's straight up lying.
Especially people who require the use of translation. It's being respectful for our colleagues to making sure that they can hear the questions and they can hear the answers.
Hold on a second.
The honourable member from...
Hold on a second. I love this. I love this. He just said, okay, I need somebody to timestamp this. How far into 2 hours, or an hour and 15 minutes into this recording? All right, good. I'm going to use that. Yeah, you just said, see this stupid face right there? See his stupid face? He just said, we need to be quiet so that people can hear when they do the translation. Thank you, Greg Fergus. Thank you. You just put the nail in the coffin for my petition. Thank you, sir.
King's Hands.
Speaker, Stephen Harper referred to Atlantic Canada, and I quote, a culture of defeat. When the Conservatives were in government...
The honourable member, colleagues. Colleagues, the more time that I'm spending up on my feet, the less time we have for questions. So I'm going to ask members, please. The honourable member from King's Hands from the top, please.
Speaker, Stephen Harper referred to Atlantic Canada as, I quote, a culture of defeat. When the Conservatives were in government, when they amended the Atlantic Accords, they put our region's interests in the back seat. Just ask Bill Casey. As it relates to Bill C-49, our government has worked with the government of Nova Scotia. We've worked with Newfoundland and Labrador because the legislation represents billions of economic opportunity. The Conservatives stood in the way every single time. Can the Minister of Housing provide an update to this House about why this bill matters for Nova Scotia?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question and for his advocacy for the economy in Nova Scotia. There's a few reasons we got involved in politics. Creating good jobs at home and protecting the environment are among them. The behaviour of Conservative MPs from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador in this file is absolutely ridiculous. You have to ask yourself why they oppose good jobs at home. I expect it's because it protects the environment too, and their leader has told them they're not allowed to talk about climate change unless it's to visit school kids and tell them carbon dioxide is just plant food, nothing to worry about. Mr. Speaker, this legislation is going to make a meaningful difference, create good paying jobs on the East Coast and protect our environment. I wish Atlantic MPs on the Conservative.
The honourable member from Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Yesterday, on October 7th, while burning the Maple Leaf, Sami Doon terrorist sympathizers openly called for death to Canada. Death.
Careful, Marty. They're going to kick you out like they did Pierre.
To Israel. After 9 years of this Prime Minister, sadly calls for death to Canada, and our allies have now been normalized. Sami Doon operates as an arm of a listed terrorist organization in Canada. Will the Prime Minister protect Jewish Canadians from homegrown extremism and list Sami Doon as a terrorist organization?
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
If there's one thing today we will be able to agree is that we both condemn what happened yesterday on the streets of Vancouver talking about. And that's why we will always condemn any form of anti-Semitism. And I'm convinced that everybody in this House will condemn any form of anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Then where's the freaking emergency? Zach! Kalis tabarnakis! Simon Saint-Sagar!
The honourable member from Toronto, St. Paul's.
Coffee's kicking in.
Speaker, in March of this year, Sami Doon paraded through my riding to intimidate our Jewish community. Now we see videos of Sami Doon members in our streets calling for the death of Canada. Long live October 7th, and calling the Hamas terrorists their heroes while they burn the Canadian flag. This government has done nothing to put a stop to these pro-genocide, anti-Semitic, anti-Canadian mobs who threaten our Jewish communities nationwide. Will the Prime Minister commit to protecting our Jewish communities and label Sami Doon a terrorist organization?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those actions taking place in our streets are wrong. We condemn them full stop. Any form of anti-Semitism is wrong. This is precisely why, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Safety had already referred the listing of Sami Doon to our national security advisors and asked for an emergency and urgent review. Mr. Speaker, we've already taken action, but we know this issue isn't political, and it's a shame that Conservatives only stand up when they think it suits their political advantage.
Beat the shit out of Canadians waving Canadian flags, but you've got people saying death to Canada?
Colleagues, these are very important questions and very important answers. I'm going to ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please not speak out of turn and allow the questions and answers to occur uninterrupted. The honourable member from Thornhill.
if they took action, they would have listed them already. So if burning a Canadian flag, if calling for the death of Canadians, if fomenting hate in this country, and most of all being a front for an already listed terrorist organization is not enough to put them on the list, then what the hell is it going to take for them to ban them?
Yeah! Come on! Drop some W's, chat. Look alive.
Go to the answer. I'm just going to ask the honourable member to withdraw the unparliamentary language.
No, don't do it.
Withdraw.
Withdraw. All right, whatever.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to an issue as serious as this, we are not going to play politics with Canadian safety. But when it comes to...
You literally are! People are saying death to Canadians and you've done nothing.
Well, it is not a political decision. It is based on the national security services of this country, but it's precisely why the minister had already sent it for an urgent review, understanding that this hate is unacceptable in Canada.
Just words, just pandering.
Colleagues, I've asked the all honourable members, please, not to take the voice. I'll ask the honourable member from Thornhill who had a question, had an opportunity to speak, and could also speak again, I'm sure. Please do not speak out of turn while other members have the floor. The honourable member from Halifax West.
Parliament recently passed Bill which will create an offshore wind energy sector in Atlantic Canada, in my region. This will mean jobs, investment, and clean energy. Despite all this, the Conservatives opposed C-49 and opposed renewable energy. The Conservatives have put
Steph Wellesley, welcome to the membership
ahead of Canadians.
Program, I appreciate you. Suzanne with a $4 super sticker.
Must take advantage of economic opportunities that come with the energy transition. Thank you.
Poor man's poet with the 20 US. I'm American, but Canadian politics fascinate me and I follow it avidly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Something feels different the past few days, though, like something is about to snap or bust wide open.
Jobs in Canada by
Praying for you guys.
And the offshore wind sector will be $1 trillion industry.
Poor man's poet.
This equates
I think we all feel it.
thousands of jobs.
I think we all feel something crazy is about to happen.
Guaranteed. In order to create them, we need an ambitious climate plan. That's why we passed Bill C-49, which will allow for development of offshore wind energy in Canada. Unfortunately, the Bloc has joined forces with the Conservatives to oppose renewable energy. Our government will fight to take advantage of these economic opportunities and to create these jobs, even if the other parties are turning their backs on the fight against climate change.
The honourable member from Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, new data reveals that 1 in 4 Canadians are forced into precarious gig work. And under the Liberals, the cost of living has exploded while wages have fallen behind. More than ever, workers need and deserve more power, protection, and pay. And joining a union is the best way to get that. So while Liberals continue to undermine unions and Conservatives want to tear them down, New Democrats will always be Canada's only Labour Party. So with this government, support the NDP's plan for sectoral bargaining.
Shut the hell up.
Workers can benefit from a union card.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, whether it's sticking up for replacement workers, whether it's doubling...
Which Randy is it?
Training investment fund. Mr. Speaker, this is the most labor-friendly government in the history of our country. We are union...
Hey, whoa, the mask is off.
...friendly. We're going to continue to make sure that we grow this economy from the bottom up.
The mask is off.
That means with good union workers.
The mask is off. It's safe again in Parliament. That's the same person, right? Or am I tripping?
The honourable members from South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, after a summer of wildfires that destroyed thousands of hectares of forests in the iconic city of Jasper, the Liberals are planning to cut funding for emergency services. And to make matters worse, this government has failed to train even a single firefighter in 5 provinces. It's their job to protect communities, but they're letting people down. Now, we know Conservatives cut services all the time, but why are the Liberals risking Canadians' lives just to help their bottom line?
Randy with the $2. Which Randy is it? Thank you. I think Canadians should be allowed to fully retire at 55.
I appreciate the question from the member.
That'd be pretty cool.
But it's absolutely not true. We have invested significantly in emergency preparedness. In fact, we have trained over 1,000 firefighters, which also includes Indigenous firefighters as well. We increased equipment.
I've got a tree in my backyard that has more personality than this guy.
Sure that they have all the resources necessary to fight the wildfires that are being devastated by climate change. Thank you.
Chers collègues,
he doesn't
draw the attention of members.
He doesn't want to even show up to work
in the gallery of Dr.
No, we did that once. We took a little look-see poo in the gallery one time, and nobody saw that coming. I did not see that coming. All right, folks, I'm gonna rapid fire these super chats here. Nancy with the $13.99. Trudeau doesn't care about Canadians. He has not been transparent to the people by doing the right thing and handing over documents. Is he all about the law suddenly? It's all pandering, right? It's all just a game. Tic-tac-toe. How dumb is Trudeau? Made that up right now. Not too bad. I might do a sticker about that. Canadian Commander with the 5. The Liberal Party should pass a hat to get Sean Fraser a suit from somewhere other than Giant Tiger. I think Giant Tiger is like only in Ontario. We don't have it out here in BC, but I grew up in Ontario and I'm used to Giant Tiger. And dude, it's so crazy. It's crazy that you just said Giant Tiger, because I actually had to explain that to my wife like the other week, what Giant Tiger was, and just how, if you know, you know, man. If you've ever been to Giant Tiger, then you know it's a memory for me that, I mean, there's barely any left. That's freaking awesome. Thank you for that. And Lost Art with the new membership. Thank you. I appreciate that. No message attached. All right, folks, that's the end of question period. I gotta do some stuff here, because Pierre got suspended. You got a lot of shit that happened in the house. Lots of things outside of the house within the hallways. Lots of press conferences that happen as well. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Turn post notification on. We'll see you back tomorrow. Pierre will be back in the house tomorrow. His 1-day suspension is finally up from calling it as it is, saying that the Liberals are pandering to the terrorist regime Hamas by not really doing anything, just talking in the house. It's the only place to talk about it. And Samuel with the $2 to wrap things up. Go to work, Trudeau, and stop being a child. Hand in the documents. Let's resume Parliament. Peace and love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go over to MSB and stay tuned for a video there in the next few minutes. All right. Bye. Take care. Thanks for all the support, by the way. Thank you.